Welcome back to another sports podcast, everybody, because it's exactly what the world needs. Another sports podcast. We're the Sweaty Trio. We're glad to be back. Today's guest is one of the most plugged-in voices for the Toronto Raptors. You've read his articles on Sports Illustrated, seen him break down every trade, press conference, and preseason highlight like it's the NBA Finals. He's so plugged in, he probably knows Masai's favorite breakfast. Whether you love him, hate him, or roast him on Reddit, you definitely know his name. Welcome to the locker room, Aaron Rose.
Thank you guys for having me on. I certainly know I'm divisive. I've probably seen those comments that you're talking about on Reddit, but as long as people care, right? If love me or hate me, it means you care about what I have to say. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
You know what they say? All publicity is good publicity, right? As long as they're saying your name, you're winning.
Yeah, yeah. It's as long as it's not too harsh, but I think I've learned to have pretty thick skin.
For sure, especially being on the internet, man. People get ruthless. So give the people who don't know you, of course, a lot of people in Toronto definitely know you, but give the people who don't know you a little rundown of the kind of things you do online.
Yeah, I write articles about the Raptors on SI, as you mentioned, but one of the things that I've sort of been into over the past few years is really just bringing that sort of journalism background, that traditional journalism media to social media. I went to Northwestern and sort of learned the bread and butters of journalism. And I was like, nobody's really doing that kind of thing on social media. So, Aaron Benrose on TikTok, on Instagram, and increasingly on YouTube. And it's just like bring that sort of reporting, information, but also opinion, which is maybe something that's less traditional, but increasingly what people I think are looking for. And I try and be a straight shooter. Like I'm going to tell you when things are good. I'm going to tell you when things are bad. I'm not going to tell you that, this Raptors team is the greatest team of all time and they're about to win 50 games next year, but I'm not going to lie to you either. So I think that's really what I'm trying to bring to my followers is just an honest and respectful conversation, right? Like I will engage with people on social media as long as we try and keep it respectful. And I think that's the kind of thing that I've tried to bring to a place where traditional journalists haven't traditionally gone.
Absolutely. So how'd you get started covering the Raps?
I was working in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in a small town, covering basically everything there, but grew up in Toronto. And basically, right when the pandemic happened, I was like, okay, I want to come home. I want to be close to my family and stuff. So I started covering the team, and I thought I was going to come back and cover my first game. It was LeBron James in Toronto, Raptors, Lakers. And then the day I signed my contract, Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19, as we all remember, and the whole world shut down. So a little bit of a change of plans. I spent the first year covering the team, and I was sitting at home because the team was in Tampa. Actually, well, first it was in Orlando, and then it was in Tampa, and then there were no fans there. But so it was a weird start to covering the team. But I've been doing it literally since the start of the pandemic, as I mentioned, and it's just grown to a thing that I'm really enjoying, and bringing, as I mentioned, sort of a different form of journalism to. People who haven't necessarily consumed that type of journalism, as I mentioned, on social media.
That's what's up. So what did your day-to-day look like as a reporter during the season?
During the season, it really depends on if it's a game day or if it's a practice day or if it's just a day off or if they're on the road. So things change a lot. If the game's at 7:30 or 7 or whatever, I try and leave my house at around 4 o'clock, subway down there, and get there for pregame and listen to Darko speak, listen to the away coach speak, and then maybe head into the locker room or just hang out, have dinner, and then the game tips off, and then after the game, it's get a quick version of the story out right when the final buzzer sounds. Head down, speak to a couple players, speak to Darko, and then go home and get into bed sometime around 11. So it's late nights, and then when they're not playing, it's either what are Raptors fans thinking about? It's heading over to practice. It's you know searching on Reddit, trying to think about like what are Raptors fans thinking about and what can I say or what can I bring to, my followers or the people that's going to be interesting. So if people are talking about RJ Barrett trade ideas, like I'm happy to, chime in and give you my opinion on those things. And then in the off season, it's a lot of, trade ideas, draft conversations, summer league. Maybe it's more Blue Jays. That's something I've been doing a lot more lately. But it slows down in the off season, and sometimes those ideas are harder to come by. But that's sort of what a day to day looks like for me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Raps off season? What do you think? The East is kind of weaker than it has been in years past with some significant injuries. Thoughts? Playoff team, bubble team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're at a really interesting spot. And I think that there are a few teams that we don't know which way they're going to go. People often talk about Philly, like what is Philadelphia going to be next year? But that's an injury question. And I think the Raptors are one of those teams that could go either way. And I know, from consuming what fans have to say, I think fans are really, really optimistic about this team, top six, whatever. They could surprise people. And I certainly think they could. But I don't want people to get their hopes so high. I think at one point I looked at this team and said, yeah, they're a playoff team. But at the same time, like there are some question marks with this team. There are question marks in a lot of different areas, right? Like we have the question mark, how many games is Brandon Ingram going to play? We've sort of never really seen a perfectly healthy, I'm not even talking about 82 games, but we've never really seen a completely healthy season from Scottie Barnes. Emmanuel quickly has some injury question marks. And everyone talks about, oh, like if this team's healthy, but like no team is ever, you never have five guys, your starting lineup's going to play 82 games. So I think there are some health questions that the Raptors, maybe more so than other teams, certainly with Brandon Ingram. And then the other thing is fit, right? We've literally never seen this five-man group play a game together. And even without Brandon Ingram, we still haven't totally seen this team play competitive games with the goal of winning very much. And I think that there are some fit questions that maybe if you were playing 2K and you added Brandon Ingram and you have whatever he is, 86 overall, and you have Scottie Barnes and he's an 85 overall, and you can make it all work. But I think in the real NBA, it might be a little bit more complicated having that many guys who are at their best, sort of with the ball in their hands, creating or scoring in isolation. And I think it can certainly all work out. But I also want to caution fans that there is sort of there's a reason the over-under is 36 and a half next year. And maybe that is low, but it's not so low that like they're probably not going to blow by that number by 10 or 15 games. So I think that would be my message to fans, is that there's certainly a way this goes right. But again, there's a reason it's 36 and a half.
Oh, Michael, we're having some trouble hearing you.
No worries. I can jump in here. So you covered the Raps right after the championship season. What do you think of
Great
the
timing,
transition?
right?
Yeah, right. The timing with like the transition between the Nick Nurse era into the Darko era. Obviously, huge changes with the whole franchise changing, and now Masai leaving. What are your thoughts on Darko? Is he the coach of the future? Is he a placeholder? Like, what do you think on that?
I don't know. And that's the truth, right? Like we've never seen Darko really coach a competitive team. So, all the vibes are good. People love to talk about that. Everyone loves everyone. Frankly, I don't really care about those things. Like, it's kind of been reported, but not everyone liked each other on the Raptors 2019 championship team. There were guys in that locker room who did not like each other. And while I think Nick Nurse is and was a brilliant X's and O's coach, he's not a great people person. But at the end of the day, like you're not, you don't win a championship. You don't hang banner for like best vibes. Everyone loved everyone, number one in team chemistry. Frankly, I don't care about that. And frankly, you shouldn't either. So this year is going to be like a prove it year. Like, is Darko the guy who is, kumbaya, everyone's happy? Or is Darko a guy who can draw up some plays and, win some games? And I can think back to a few times. I think there was a series in Los Angeles where they played maybe the Clippers and the Lakers in one of those, back-to-back sort of situations. And he had Jakob late in the game and the ball in his hands and they fouled him. And it was just like, there are a few times that I can think about where like maybe a better coach wins that game for the Raptors. Now, again, winning hasn't exactly been their priority over the past few years. So, you asked that question, is Darko the coach of the future? We're going to have to see it this year because right now, I don't know.
Makes sense. Michael, what do you got?
You think so? Kind of going back to what we were talking about, we got three ball dominant players in Ingram and Barrett and Scottie. Do you think maybe they slide in like Grady Dick in at the two and move RG to the bench? That would help kind of maybe mesh the offense a little bit better.
I think if we were playing 2K, that might be something you could think about. But I don't think that's realistic given RJ's probably looking at a contract extension or wants a new deal pretty soon. The Raptors might want to trade him, and moving him to the bench isn't that great. And also, like, RJ has his flaws as a player, but he's a better player than Grady Dick right now. And I think that moving him to the bench, like you can move a guy to the bench. They're doing it with Grady, right? Grady was the starter every day, but you can move a guy to the bench when it's clearly you're upgrading with Brandon Ingram. But you can't just it's tough to move a guy to the bench and be like, all right, Grady Dick's the starting shooting guard, or Ochai Agbaji. The truth is, like, I'd probably put Ochai ahead of Grady because while Grady is, I think, a good shooter, or at least a theoretically good shooter, I still would like to see him prove it a little bit more. I think his numbers for his career are like 35%, which is good. But like, if shooting's your thing, you got to be like 38, 39, 40%. So I want to see more from Grady. And the Raptors have talked all about defense. And we just saw it at Summer League. Like, this is a team focused on defense. And Grady is not a good defender. So if their calling card is going to be defense, then maybe you put somebody like Ochai Agbaji in there. I don't think Jacoby Walter is like ready to seize that spot, but maybe eventually he could seize that spot. I do think that RJ Barrett makes sense coming off the bench. I just don't think it's realistic to do that to start the season. But there are ways around that, right? Like, you could have RJ play the first 5 minutes of the game, move him to the bench, and he plays more with bench units, or you figure it out. Maybe Scottie plays more with bench units, so he can really lift those units and you take him out. The Raptors have done that before, right? They pull Scottie early in the game, they bring him back quickly with the bench unit. So there's ways around it, but I don't anticipate we get to a point, at least anytime soon, where RJ's coming off the bench on a regular basis.
I'm curious, do you have a dark horse breakout player on the Raptors roster for next year? Someone that you could really see making a huge impact and making their name stay in Toronto?
My answer to this question a few years ago was Precious Achua, which did not age well. I think this year I've officially decided to sell my penny stocks on Precious Achua at a loss. Who do I think is a breakout? Maybe Jacoby Walter. Like, I don't necessarily know what an Ochai Agbaji breakout looks like. I think to some extent we saw that. Like, he shot 39, 40% from three last year and played good defense. I don't know what more there is there. Um, Grady Dick shooting 39% or 40% would certainly be huge, but I don't know that he's going to become some sort of, defensive 3-and-D wing. Like, I don't see that ceiling for him. Maybe there's more to Jacoby Walter's game. Maybe that's an obvious pick. He's going into his sophomore year. That's probably maybe the answer to the question. Is there someone I'm missing that you guys think is the breakout candidate for the Raptors?
I love Jamal Shed.
Yeah, Jamal Shed like certainly could be that. I still think like there's some limitations to his game just given his size. But and he didn't necessarily show like he's ready to be a backup point guard on a great team based on his summer league. Not that summer league should tell us much given how bad Ochai Agbaji was 2 years ago before a pretty good season last year. I don't know what an Jamal Shed breakout season necessarily looks like. Like him being like, wow, like this guy's one of the top backup point guards in the league. But certainly like he had a very good season and the Raptors are excited about him.
What did you think of the Raptors draft? Because I know that Masai got some backlash for that ninth overall pick, and obviously the reaction was taken out of context, I think. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I like that they approach the draft true to their best player available mindset, which is like, we don't care about fit and we're just going to take the best player available because in 2 years, you don't know what this roster is going to be like. So just add the best players and figure it out later. Like, I like that mindset. Having said that, Colin Murray-Boyles is a really bad fit with this team. And it's weird when you're like trying to build around Scottie Barnes and you've added a guy with limited shooting. And like, I probably overcorrect or I probably overanalyze how important 3-point shooting is. But I also look at the teams in the playoffs and the really good teams, and like they often have 3 or 4 or 5 guys on the floor at any given time who are like good shooters. And I look at the Raptors and I'm like, Scottie Barnes, not a great shooter. Jakob Poeltl, not a shooter. Colin Murray-Boyles as a prospect, like not a good shooter. Jamal Shed, iffy shooter. Like the list goes on and on. Brandon Ingram, I think a really good shooter who doesn't like to shoot threes that much. RJ Barrett, inconsistent 3-point shooter. And I just like, it's a little tough for me to see it all work out. But again, if they clearly thought that Colin Murray-Boyles was like so talented that it was worth overlooking the fact that he's a bad fit. And I respect that decision, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
For sure. I think Masai was in the weeds for a while. I think that was kind of the rumblings for a little while. What's the next move? I mean, I saw your post either yesterday or today about Bobby Webster, and I know that they're interviewing people for that role. Do you think it's going to be Bobby? Are they going to go external with Keith Pelly coming in? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. There was some reporting from Michael Grange of Sportsnet that sort of said that people seem to think that Bobby Webster is the favorite, is the most likely candidate, and also mentioned the idea that they might promote Bobby from general manager to president and bring in a new general manager from outside, as opposed to sort of just doing the promotion thing and moving Dan Tolzman from assistant general manager to general manager and keeping everyone the same. I don't think it would be a bad idea to bring in an outside voice. I think that the past few years from the Raptors have not been as good as the ones before that, if we could put it mildly. And I think that, like, I'm not saying blow everything up, but I'm also think that having a new set of eyes in the room might not be a bad thing. And I think that Bobby Webster is really, really smart and really, really capable as a person. I certainly think he's should be one of the leading candidates. I don't necessarily know who else is out there. But I think that he will be impressive. I do think that, like, when it comes to wowing a room, and not that my opinion matters as a media member on those things, but what part of what made Masai so special is that he could walk into a room and he had aura, right? He could pound his fist on the table and say, like, we will win again in Toronto. And, like, he could trade Pascal Siakam and make you believe that it was like the best trade of all time. And, like, he was working a stroke of genius. And, like, you'd come out of that being like, wow, like, that was a great trade because Masai said it was a great trade.
Yeah.
And Bobby Webster's not like that. Like, Bobby is pretty boring and pretty vanilla. But again, like, you don't hang a banner for the best, president speech at the end of the season. You hang it for winning a championship. So I think Bobby is smart, and he could lead this organization forward. He'll be in the conversation, but he's not going to, like, inspire the fan base or fill up my notebook with the quotes the way Masai Ujiri did.
So there's obviously the biggest rumor this summer around the Raptors is Giannis. Is there any world where he becomes a Toronto Raptor?
I would say not anymore. Now,
No.
like, the connection was Masai. I don't really see. First of all, it seems like he's not getting traded this year, although I think that's a mistake by the Bucks. I think that they've had a really rough offseason. But I think sort of Masai was the whole Giannis, we have a connection. Maybe he'll come to Toronto, which has probably been overblown, to be frank. But I don't see it happening certainly anytime soon. And maybe if the Raptors are competitive down the road, maybe something happens there. But I don't anticipate that happening sort of at the trade deadline or even this offseason.
Yeah,
I'm sad to hear that.
I definitely agree that it was overblown. I think Toronto is hungry for that one big star, that big piece. Like you were saying, if this was 2K and if you were the GM, what moves would you make for the Raptors to win now? What kind of pieces are we missing to see that championship caliber team?
Yeah, to win a championship, you need, like, a dude, right? And I'm not sure the Raptors have a dude. I would say, like, this doesn't answer your question necessarily directly, but I think the Raptors kind of need to chill. Like, let's see this team. What do they look like? Are they a playoff team? Are they a top 6 seed? Is this like this team's better than I expected? Now Scottie Barnes fits in a different way. Like, Brandon Ingram is maybe not a dude, but, like, close to that. Like, what do we have here? And then let's analyze, like, is this a team that can win a first round playoff series, or is this a team that's, like, in the lottery next year? Because I think jumping the gun and trying to go after one of those guys right now, when you don't know how close this team is, would be a mistake. So I would say, like, maybe there's this mindset that, like, we got to make a move right now, but, like, you don't. So like, let's chill. Let's see what this team looks like. Maybe at the trade deadline, like, let's analyze things again. But, like, I don't think it makes sense for the Raptors to, if you're trading for, like, that guy, whoever that guy is, and frankly, I don't know who it is right now, who's available right now, but, like, if you're trading for that guy, you're trading, like, either star players, you're trading Scottie Barnes, you're trading, RJ and Emmanuel quickly, and you're trading a bunch of first round picks. Like, it leaves you depleted. And, like, I just don't know how good, as we talked about before, I don't know how good this team is. So, like, let's chill. Let's see what this team looks like. Let's reevaluate at the trade deadline. Let's reevaluate next offseason, right? Because you look at OKC, like, they were really patient. And at times, I wrongly said that they were too patient. Like, I would have probably made a deal. But what did they do? They said, like, let's figure out what this team is. And then let's make small little tinkers. Let's add Alex Caruso, right? That's not a superstar. Let's add Alex Caruso. Let's add Hartenstein. Let's make small additions at the places we need it. And that will help us win a championship. This idea that it's like, got to go all in right now, I think is not something the Raptors should be doing.
No, I agree.
Taking
Taking a little away from basketball, I wanted to ask, have you ever covered a story or a player that had a coach or a player mad at you about it? That they kind of came back with a little bit of criticism for you?
Yeah, wait, yeah, yes, I have. Not really my fault. I will say, like, I say some things, and there have been times where I have, almost posted a video and been like, I don't need to do this. Like, maybe I would get a few laughs, maybe it would add a few followers, but like, I shouldn't say this. I look like a dick. Like, so and so is going to be, so and so is going to be mad at me when I walk in the locker room. And I remember at times, like, I posted some videos critical of Gary Trent Jr.'s defense, which rightfully deserved to be criticized. And I remember, like, Gary mentioning to me, not in a negative way, but like, hey, I've seen your videos. Like, RJ Barrett said that to me this past year. So guys have said, like, I see your videos. And in that moment, I always have to go like, oh shit, what did I say? Like, have I said anything that crossed the line? So I do think about those things. I was on a podcast a few years ago, and these other guys that I was on the podcast with said some things about Bruce Brown that Bruce Brown saw and didn't like. And he sort of was like, where are those guys? Like, I went to practice that day and he was like, where are those guys? Like, I saw you in that thing. And he kind of got mad at me, and Garrett Temple was like, yeah, where are those guys? So like, and I was like, it wasn't me, because it wasn't me. But so it would be like as if you guys, posted a video where you guys said some stuff that you shouldn't have said, and then I had to show up and answer for the things that you said. So that has happened to me, but I've never had a player like, come at me and like hold me back because I said something on social media.
I have a question that's a two-parter. So we've had a crazy offseason, probably the craziest in recent memory. What do you think the biggest takeaway? Who's your biggest winner is essentially my question for that. Would you say it's Houston with KD? Is it maybe Phoenix getting some assets back and, extending Booker?
Definitely not Phoenix. I would say Houston is certainly a big winner. I think Atlanta had a very good offseason. Like, Atlanta had a great offseason in two parts. They made their team right now better with Kristaps Porzingis if he's healthy, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, with Luke Kennard. Like, that team went from being like a classic Atlanta, going to win 41 games, be in the play-in mix, kind of, win half their games every other night or whatever, to a team that, like, could they make a conference finals? Could they win? I don't think they're going to win the championship, but like, if you told me, like, Aaron, if you told me in a year from now, Aaron, you wouldn't believe who made the championship for the East. If it was a shocking team, I would say it's Atlanta. And then the other thing that they did was, like, you want to talk about teams with really weird off seasons? New Orleans made that trade where they gave up that future first round pick, their own pick or the Bucks pick, to Atlanta. So I look at Atlanta, not only do they have that pick that, like, could it be the number one pick in next year's draft? Like, yeah. And they could also trade that pick, which I'm not saying they should necessarily do. But like, if they're, a 3 seed in the East, a 4 seed in the East, and like some guy wants out at the trade deadline, like, they now have an ammo of like maybe a top 4 pick that they could trade at the trade deadline, where they go from like, oh, they're like a, fringe 3 or 4 seed in the East, to like, oh, this team's good. So they're a team that I think had a really good offseason too.
Nice. Kind of want to circle back to the draft. If you had to describe the Mavs getting the number 1 pick after trading Luka away in one word, what would it be? Rigged?
Ridiculous.
No, it wouldn't be rigged. It would be like, what's the like, karma, I feel like, is often like a good thing. I don't know what the opposite of karma is. Like,
I guess like an evil eye. I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's just unfortunate. Maybe unfortunate. Because like Nico Collins gets to be like, wow, I'm so smart. Like, people who make bold decisions, like, dude, you traded Luka Doncic, in a win now move. And then, like, the only reason you got the number 1 pick is because, like, Kyrie Irving had a season-ending injury that's going to, like, take him out for most of this year, and Anthony Davis had to miss time. Like, your stroke of genius was like, wow, I'm so smart. I traded Luka Doncic, and then, like, took out Kyrie Irving's ACL or whatever it is, Achilles or ACL, and then like secretly injured Anthony Davis, and that was part of my genius plan. Like come on now. You're so lucky. Somehow you've got like crazy karma that like this happened to you, this terrible thing, and now like fans who hate you are like, I guess we still have to cheer for the Mavs because we got Cooper Flag. But that and the 76ers also moving up when like they did not deserve that whatsoever. Yeah. Both of those things together were quite frustrating. Anti-karma. That's my word.
Karma. I like it. What are your thoughts on Basketball Canada? So obviously there's a plethora of Canadian talent. We've obviously seen basketball grow in this country. Where do they stack up against basically the US and the rest of the world on the international stage?
Yeah, I think that they have the talent to be as good as almost anyone. Maybe not the Americans yet, but they haven't done it, right? Like, for the longest time, we were talking about a 20-year drought without the Olympics. And then it was like, okay, this is the second best team of the Olympics. And they like, I don't want to say, can I say they disappointed? Like they came short. And I think part of that is like these teams around the world, they like Luka's like, I think playing in Euro basketball, like Jokic, I think is like all these guys, all these Europeans, like this is what they live for. Like they love international basketball and these groups, there's a culture there and they show up and they've played together for years. Whereas with Canada basketball, it's like, we'll show up when it comes to the Olympics and we'll show up maybe for the World Cup, but like the America Cup, we don't really care. Like Shea's not playing this summer where like other guys are. And I'm not saying like Shea just, won finals MVP. Okay. He's allowed to take the summer off. But I think that like, there's a different culture in Europe, whereas like the Americans can just show up, they can roll out like LeBron, Steph Curry, and they can just like win a gold. Although like, the world's getting better. Like it's not necessarily such a given for them, but for the most part, they can just like roll out their top 8 guys and like win a championship, win a gold medal because they have that talent. But Canada can't yet. And I think that while there's certainly talent and they need another big man, Zach Edey hopefully will get there, but more depth at the center position would help. But they also need a little bit more than that. They need the culture of like coming together and we're going to do it the way that like, Slovenia and Croatia and France and, Germany and Spain for the longest time. Like those teams they're more than the sum of their parts. And I think generally speaking, Canada has been less than the sum of its parts.
There's an ornament that I've been seeing a lot, especially on my feed on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and everything. It's KD versus Kobe. In your humble opinion, who's the better player?
You're putting me on the spot here. I'd probably have to look at it. But I think like
jump in and say this conversation did start from a start bench cut that we did on our recent podcast. And Michael had gotten a lot of flack. Me and Michael were on opposite sides of this conversation. But I'll let you take the floor.
I think I would say Kobe, but part of that is like that might be like we have some memories of Kobe that probably are not correct. Like, wow, he's a killer. He never missed a game-winning shot. Like he was the greatest, assassin of all time. And like that's not fully true. And I did a video on that. But I also think like, well, Durant is a better scorer than Kobe, but like he's also been in some situations, and maybe this is like off the field locker room stuff, and not all of it's on him, but like why was Phoenix so bad this past year, and like why did things not work out in Brooklyn? And again, it's not all on KD, but like KD's been in some weird situations, and Kobe, I guess he was in a weird situation with Shaq, but like hasn't, as far as my memory recalls, like I don't remember him, like he certainly never left his team, but like he never quit. There was never really like I can't think of a certain situation where it was like, yikes, like, what's going on here? Obviously there were issues with Kobe and things were not great with Shaq, and off the field or off the court stuff. But I would say for the most part, like there are some questions about KD's legacy that I think maybe we don't have with Kobe.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'd love to ask, in all your reporting work, has there ever been a time where you became starstruck with someone you were interviewing?
Have I ever been starstruck? No.
No.
I
Do you
think
have a favorite player?
like maybe like being around LeBron, but I think like you also sort of learn that like these guys are really, really great basketball players, but they're also humans. And like you can just like maybe the first time I was in a locker room, but I covered the Blue Jays before this. So like I had been in a locker room before. I'd like, it wasn't quite as special. I don't think like, NBA player, like I wanted to ask LeBron a question because then I could be like, I can tell my kids one day, like I spoke to LeBron, but I don't think I was like fumbling for words because LeBron James like had me like, baffled or something. So I would say probably not really.
Did you have a favorite player that you interviewed or someone who really let their personality shine in an interview?
Fred is a great interview. I will say I find that like some of the best players in the league, Drew Holiday's a great interview, Dame Lillard's a great interview. Like, and I'm not saying I've gone long with these guys, like, their short question and answers or whatever, but like the best players in the league tend to be very articulate and thoughtful. There's probably a correlation between like how thoughtful you are and like how high your basketball IQ is. Like LeBron is a good quote and like thinks about your questions and answers. So, with the exception of Kawhi, who I don't think I've ever interviewed, who's not, the most articulate or verbose person, not to question his intelligence. He's obviously a smart guy. But I think like most of the best players in the league are pretty thoughtful and happy to talk guys. Norm Powell's another one of those guys who I like chatting with and I like interviewing. So those are some of the guys that come to mind first.
Nice.
We've heard some one more.
I got one for you, Aaron, quickly, because I know you got to go. 2019, let's say Kawhi comes back. Do the Raptors repeat?
The Raptors might repeat if COVID doesn't happen, right? Yeah. Like if Pascal Siakam, and not to blame him because I was afraid during COVID, like so. But if the world doesn't shut down, if he doesn't have to like get held up in his room for the most part and lose that momentum, like there's a chance that the Raptors repeat even without Kawhi. And then certainly if Kawhi resigns and Danny Green comes back and it's just like running back that same group, then yeah, they certainly could have repeated. It's a shame we never got to see that.
Aaron, man, this has been an awesome interview through and through. We want to take this opportunity to let you plug anything that you got going on, any big projects, and where people could find you on social media.
Yeah, just first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. It was a ton of fun, and yeah, if people want to interact with me, want to watch my stuff, Aaron Ben Rose on all platforms, Twitter, which I don't really use that much anymore, but Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. If you're respectful in my comments, I will try and interact with you. I do read them, which is probably not good for my mental health. But I will go back and forth, and I will take questions, and I will give you my thoughts. And sometimes you guys say something in the comments, and I'm like, oh, that is a good point. Like, let me do a video on this. So if anyone watching wants to interact with me or follow along, Aaron Ben Rose on social media.
Absolutely. And if any haters are watching, he's got 3 sweaty goons to get his back now in the comments. So
yes, sir.
That's right.
You guys don't want to mess anymore.
Aaron Rose is one of us now.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
For spending the time. And as always, everybody's watching, stay sweaty.